Hi, Class 15. This is Chapter 3 of Swamplandia. This chapter is called Osceola K. Bigtree in Love. Shortly after Ossie's strange birthday, our Ouija seances began to change focus. Our sessions at the board became a game of spectral telephone. Ossie would get me to anchor my side of the pointer while she cruised around the alphabet, summoning boyfriends. It made her too sad, she explained, to get a dial tone when we tried to ring Mom. Now we were going to practice conversing with other ghosts, the ones whom she could make contact with. At first I refused to play. I felt as though we were giving up on our mother. Getting Mom on the board was the whole point of the game, as I'd understood it. But pretty soon I started to sort of enjoy reading my sister's conversations with these ghosts. It was a very special kind of eavesdropping. Your eyes had to dart around the board and add up all the words as fast as your pointer flew. We sat on the bedroom planks and spelled things to ourselves like, "I love you, gorgeous." Wally Pip was my sister's first date. Well, Wally looked like a living dimple, just this chubby footnote into sports history that she'd found on a book called Baseball, An American Passion. It was not for me to criticize my sister's taste, but why not try for Jackie Robinson, Babe Ruth, I asked her, or even Lefty Gomez? Why not Lefty? Too famous, Ossie told me, concentrating. We've got to be realistic here, Ava. Then the rules changed again, and Ossie told me that I was not allowed to play anymore. I was too young to understand her spiritist communications. Ouija was no longer our toy. It was now a private rotary. She sat with her delicate hands vaulted over the pointer for an hour, like a concert pianist waiting for her score to appear. Now that I couldn't play the game with her anymore, I was happy to ally myself with my brother. We tag team teased her. "Hey, Ossie, what do baby ghosts eat for breakfast?" "Dreaded wheat." "What do you call a ghost mother?" "Transparent." In addition to his many academic aptitudes, Kiwi had a genius for embarrassing our sister. He could make her plump, serene face crumple into tears of rage in under a minute, and I encouraged him. If she got angry, then I knew she was listening to us. Frequently now, she wasn't within earshot of us, but zonked out of it. When she was doing a seance, her pupils blew wide and her violet eyes became as hard and shiny as bottle caps. You could yell her name at her and she wouldn't look up. During the day, it was easy to roll your eyes at Ossie's love spells. At night, everything changed. Then something shifted in our house's atmosphere, and I felt outnumbered. Ghosts soaked into our bedroom like cold water. Ossie sucked in her breath and twisted in the yellow sheets, just like my fantasy picture of a hurricane being born. Sometimes she called out strange names, then a ghost would enter her. I knew it because I could see my sister disappearing, could feel the body next to me emptying of my Ossie and leaving me alone in the room. The ghost went moving through her, rolling into her hips, making Ossie do a jerky puppet dance under her blankets. "Get out of here, ghost," I think very loudly across the chasm between our two beds. Get back to your grave. You leave my sister alone." Ossie told me that when she left our room at night, she was going on dates to meet these ghosts in the woods. She made me swear I wouldn't tell the chief. "You've got to cover for me, Ava, okay?" I nodded queasily, hoping that Kiwi was right, that the seances were just silly pageantry, an excuse Osceola made up to wear her homemade purple turban with a gold felt star. By noon, her terrifying possessions became as unrecollectable to me as a dream, and the whole problem seemed goofy. So what if she went on these dates? Probably it was just a new permutation of the game, and at least this way I got to play it with her. Again, I'll be out in the sidekick position of a secret keeper. One Friday I found the spiritist telegraph open on my bed. It wasn't anything I could read. The letters were printed in a runic alphabet that looked to me like flattened bugs. I'd had enough of this spooky crap, feeling scared in my own house. I carried the huge book to our bathtub, thinking I would turn the faucet on it. When I set it down, a skinny velvet bookmark dropped out like a tongue. I screamed and threw a washcloth over it. "Ava," my sister called suspiciously later that evening, "do you think one of the ghosts flew my book into the bathtub?" "Yes, I do. In my comic book, another radioactive superhero had just saved planet Earth. Why couldn't Ossie read cheerful stuff like this? Probably it was an ex-boyfriend of yours." I developed a weedy crop of superstitions regarding the spiritist telegraph. If accidentally I glimpsed one of the ink drawings of the Victorian Spiritists in their lizard-frilled dresses, or of one of the purple demons built like pugilists, that's a boxer, I had to knock twice on something real to ease the bad feeling inside of me. Not real, I'd recite. 1, 2. I knocked on wood, food, the wavy black soap dish with melted pink soap flakes, even Tokay, our house gecko. Ava? Ah, Chickie, why are you knocking on your sneakers? Ossie was standing at the doorframe. You were such a weirdo. That's not what I was doing. I pretended you to sit up. See, I was exercising. My sister wrinkled her nose at me, amused. For a second, I was happy because it looked like my stupidity had knocked her back into being regular old Ossie again. Hey, Ossie, have you heard from Mom yet? No, Ava, I haven't heard anything. She smiled an old, brave smile at me. I'm looking. Somehow, I had it worked out in my mind to where I could believe in our mother without having to believe in ghosts exactly. In fact, I was discovering all sorts of beliefs and skepticisms, turning like opposite gears inside me, and little drawers of hopes and fears I had forgotten to clean out. Sometimes, while wandering around the park, I'd still catch myself praying in an automatic way, like a sneeze, that my dead mom's blood test results would come back okay. After the chief unrolled his carnival Darwinism scheme, I tried to speed my own evolution into a world-acclaimed wrestler. The chief did rehearsals with me, and I got him to let me try Mom's old routines, which I ran so repetitively that I felt like my muscles were becoming hers. I held the tape loop under my right arm like she did. I timed myself against Mom's best times. Once, with only a minimum of help from my dad, I got Seth's jaws taped shut in 4 minutes and 22 seconds. Below the big tree, that was her mom, could win a match in 30 seconds flat. The chief wouldn't let me climb up her diving board. He said I wasn't a strong enough swimmer yet, and I kept pleading my case. Pretty soon, if my plan succeeded, I'd be performing the Silent Night and possibly even swimming with the Seths for a lot of people. One morning on my way home from wrestling practice in the pit, I saw my sister sitting at one of the picnic tables outside the Swamp Cafe. Her hair has a weird and glittery beacon viewed through the dense brush at the end of the wood chip trail. I stared across the outdoor seating area, a sea of empty tables, several studded with blackbirds nibbling around for crumbs. Ossie was slumped over with her head on the table, her eyes closed, the heavy clouds pushing seaward above her. Ossie, I hissed through my teeth. Ossie, wake up. Nobody thinks that's funny but you. 2 tables over, a cormorant was pecking at a desiccated potato chip, its head as glossy as a seal's. And then it hopped onto Osceola's pile of books and began to stab its beak serenely near my sister's frozen face. I screamed. Ossie's nose twitched, but her eyes stayed shut. I screamed, but I couldn't get her eyes to open. I couldn't even startle the cormorant. It cocked its head at me passively and then continued to nick at the table. Ossie, wake up! Ossie opened her eyes, 3 strands of pale hair striping her face. The bird flew off. My sister looked truly surprised to see me and maybe a little scared. Ava, how long have I been out here? I was holding a seance. Don't be stupid, I said happily. You were just playing a trick on me. Sure, gotcha. She smiled back at me, but her eyes looked clouded, like agitated water after a Seth's roll. Ossie had been doing some serious reading, I saw. The black spell book was quilled with crimson bookmarks. That night, Osceola didn't come home at all. I woke up and saw her comforter doubled under the pillow. Guilt made my logic run backwards. I decided that I had to find my sister before I could tell anybody she was missing. At sunrise, I tiptoed downstairs to look for her. By dumb luck, I decided to check the gator pit first. Ossie was asleep in the middle of bleachers in her dirty beige pajamas. Little strings of brown blood marked where she had been scratching bug bites in her sleep. She needs medicine, Kiwi said grimly when I told him where I found her. She's not well. He tapped his skull with his pencil. She needs a mainland psychiatrist. Maybe she's sleepwalking. Nah, Kiwi, she's okay. I wish now that I kept Ossie's activities to myself. She's just playing, but so far as I could tell, it hadn't been a game for months. What sort of game made you blind and quiet? Kiwi and I found the chief in the kitchen, drawing his fork through an aluminum tin of melted cheese. Tiny broccoli florets floated in the gooey cheese like a forest consumed by lava. Chief, you need to help Ossie. She's experiencing delusions, hallucinations. Ava says she was pretending at first, but now she thinks she has real powers. She's reading this thing. Kiwi dropped that book onto the table and stepped back as if expecting a bomb to go off. What is that? The chief's brows plummeted. He'd found the pictures in the appendix. Over his shoulder, I saw a scary one. A devil squatted on the apron of a spiritess dress, wrinkling puddles into her skirt with its little hooves. It looked both lamb-like and lascivious. The devil smiled shyly out at us. Spikes of hair covered its body. She doesn't date those things, I said hurriedly. Only ghosts. The chief removed his reading glasses, shut the book. Kiwi-san, you two can't find something else for her to read on that library boat? Something that's not total crap? My heart quickened in triumph. He saw. I told you so. You have to stop her now, okay? Ava, what do you want me to do? The chief looked up at me with a terrible blank expression. She's going through something. She needs a distraction. We used to have a word for your sister, boy crazy. It could be worse. At least she's not dating some mainland jerk with a motorcycle, huh? He laughed his onstage laugh. Ha ha ha. The big seal bark in triplicate for an audience. Some loser with an earring. Could it not perhaps be better, Dad? Asked Kiwi. That's the bright side here, that the dead man does not have a piercing. The chief blinked and blinked as if he had momentarily blinded himself with his own silver lining. There was no coffee left in his mug, but he kept touching the chip green rim to his lips. Well, who knows? Do you know, son? Ava, I guess I'm no longer the expert on better versus worse. I could hear the serious effort of his laughter. I pictured my dad trapped inside Ossie's painting of the underworld, chipping away at the enormous rocks, his little dual screwdriver producing sparks, flakes. Dad, Listen, your sis has a bad case of lovesickness. For a girl her age, that's like the common cold. Case of the sniffles. As if to prove his point, he made a gulping noise in his own throat. I noticed that our dad wasn't looking at us. It'll pass. Lovesickness? Now it was my turn to gape at him. Sure, the chief said. Puppy love. You're both readers, eh? Study up on Romeo. You can't forbid love to anybody. Forbidding it is just like stoking the flames. You can't boss love, kids. Chief pushed away from the table. I think he was trying his best not to yell at us. He put his fiery hair and headdress on the countertop, next to the blue box of corn cereal. He opened the two faucets. Then he dropped to his knees under the twin gushers to fix the kitchen plumbing. We stayed to watch. Just a bad leak, he grunted. When the cabinet doors opened, we could actually smell the rank, strawberry-colored puddles of water. We could see around the chief's head to tiny cairns of mouse turds. How's that look up there, Ava? Some of the pipes had turned iron red, and his voice sounded hollow in that cavity. Kiwi gave it a last shot. Chief, did you hear us, Dad? These guys she's dating, they're dead. Yes, the chief sighed. Yes, I'll admit, that is a little peculiar. The chief's efforts at normalcy began to make me feel many inexplicable things, like anger and sorrow and a peculiar self-loathing. Shame on me, I mean really on top of me, as slick and endless as a sweat. The shame was a weird alloy, but after a while I didn't even mind it. It was like a sword I'd made, glinting and strong. If I didn't hate myself, I had a feeling that I'd start hating him, my dad. Whenever I came across the chief mucking out the gator pit, holding the little accordion trunk of the submersible pump above the algae, all alone, without grandpa or mom or help of any kind, my whole belly tightened. Once I asked my father, Chief, why are you hosing the stage when the stadium is empty? Why bother getting dressed at all for nobody? Well, my kids are hardly nobody's, Ava, he chuckled, like we were his great comedy team. My kids are not some mainland twerps. They are the finest wrestlers in America. It was a scary comedy. Sometimes we try to clown around in the old way, and I get a feeling like invisible pies dripping down both our faces. Some team. The chief was doing so many jobs alone. I'd fix on the chief's raw, rope-burned palms, or all the gray hairs collected in the sink. And I'd suffered this terrible side pain that Kiwi said was probably an ulcer, and Ossie diagnosed as love sickness, or rather a nausea produced by the black fruit of love, a terror that sprouted out of your love for someone like rotting oranges on a tree branch. Osceola knew all about this black fruit, she said, because she'd grown it for her mother, our father, Grandpa Sawtooth, and even me and Kiwi. Loving a ghost was different, she explained. That kind of love was a bare branch. I pictured this branch curving inside my sister, something leafless and complete, elephantine, like a white tusk. No rot, she was saying, no fruit. You can't lose a ghost to death. She showed me a diagram in the Spiritist Telegraph, part of a chapter entitled The Corporeal Orchard. I'd never forgotten it. It had a punctilious surgical level of detail, like one of Leonardo da Vinci's anatomical sketches. Only in this drawing, the aortas and ventricles of a human heart burst into flowering trees. Gross, Os. You think there's a rotten fruit stuck inside me? I touched a rib, horrified, but also filling with a sort of dark self-regard. Not exactly. You're scared, see? You're angry because you think the chief is going to die too. Huh? No, I don't. You're angry at him, but it's too early, Ava. Never mind, I frowned. Ossie thought she was so smart now that she'd read one book. Black fruit, how stupid can you get? You know what? I think Kiwi is right. I lifted the dirty stripes of my Swamplandia t-shirt and scowled at my belly. It feels more like an ulcer. But I couldn't shake the image, crates and crates of sunken black oranges. My heart had gone wormy and rotten with fear. I thought of the corporeal orchard whenever I saw the chief's face. It was around this time that I developed a weird fascination with the tiny cockroaches that had overtaken our cafe. I'd see them marching around the perimeter, and I'd feel a little twinge. I imagined a weird kinship between us. Their skeletons were flipped outward into hard mirrors, but inside all jelly. They tapped and tapped at each other's backs. I'd get unaccountably sad some nights just watching this little blind ballet go tickling up the walls. Kiwi noticed my creepy new interest and tried to encourage it with a book he found on a library book called Why Insects Amaze Us. On Saturdays, the chief continued to hold rehearsals for the two of us. It was a gift from my father to me, probably one of the most magnificent I will ever receive in this lifetime. Although when I was 13, I just thought of it as a morning. Very ordinary, very extraordinary, ordinary. Wake up, Ava, he said into my dim room, beautiful words. Ossie, meanwhile, continued to break curfew with impunity, to date the dead, to wear very unflattering homemade turbans. If the chief couldn't fix Ossie, he still tried to stay active. He managed not ghost man, but material things, six-pack plastics, empty tubs of Delacroix and gator chow, paper plates, rotten eggs, Doc Flotsam, whatever trash we could produce in a day. Each night he burned our garbage in a ditch behind the coop. This was one of the last big tree routines to go. Columns of thick smoke rose behind the red wall at dusk, and frantic clucks rose from the chicken coop like rainfall reversing itself, spraying up into the cumulus puffs in the night sky. From the kitchen window, I could watch the chief build his midweek pyre, leftovers and little bones and milk cartons, eggshells and newspapers, a grab bag of detritus. Whatever we couldn't use or sell before nightfall, our chieftain struck a match against and sent to the stars. And that is the end of chapter 3. Our next chapter will be chapter 4, called Ava the Champion. And since she's been practicing her wrestling, we might guess that she's going to try to be a wrestling champion like her mother, Hello Big Tree, was. But we'll find out about that next week.